page 62. Diabetes Solution, by Dr. Bernstein. Part 1. Before you start. Chapter 1. Diabetes, the basics. 1.5. The type 1 diabetic. Let's look at what would happen to me, a type 1 diabetic, if I had the same breakfast as Alice, our non-diabetic. Unlike Alice, because of a condition peculiar to diabetics, if I take a long-acting insulin at bedtime, I might awaken with a normal blood sugar, but if I spend some time awake before breakfast, my blood sugar may rise, even if I haven't had anything to eat. Ordinarily, the liver is constantly removing some insulin from the bloodstream, but during the first few hours after waking from a full night's sleep, it clears insulin out of the blood at an accelerated rate. This dip in the level of my previously injected insulin is called the dawn phenomenon, see here. Because of it, my blood glucose can rise even though I haven't eaten. A non-diabetic just makes more insulin to offset the increased insulin clearance. Those of us who are severely diabetic have to track the dawn phenomenon carefully by monitoring blood glucose levels, and can learn how to use injected insulin to prevent its effect upon blood sugar. As with Alice, the minute the meal hits my mouth, the enzymes in my saliva begin to break down the sugars in the toast and juice, and almost immediately my blood sugar would begin to rise. Even if the toast had no jelly, the enzymes in my saliva and intestines and acid in my stomach would begin to transform the toast rapidly into glucose shortly after ingestion. Since my beta cells no longer produce detectable amounts of insulin, there is no stored insulin to be released by my pancreas, so I have no phase I insulin response. My blood sugar, in the absence of injected insulin, will rise while I digest my meal. None of the glucose will be converted to fat, nor will any be converted to glycogen. Eventually much will be filtered out by my kidneys and passed out through the urine, but not before my body has endured damagingly high blood sugar levels, which won't kill me on the spot but will do so over a period of days if I don't inject insulin. The natural question is, wouldn't injected insulin cover the carbohydrate in such a breakfast? Not adequately. This is a common misconception even by those in the healthcare professions. Injected insulin, even with an insulin pump, it doesn't work the same as insulin created naturally in the body. Conventional insulin, diet therapy resulting in high blood sugar after meals, is a guaranteed slow, incremental, silent death from the ravages of diabetic complications. Normal phase I insulin is almost instantly in the bloodstream. Rapidly it begins to hustle blood sugar off to where it's needed. Injected insulin, on the other hand, is injected either into fat or muscle, not usually into a vein, and absorbed slowly. The fastest insulin we have starts to work in about 20 minutes, but its full effect is drawn out over a number of hours, not nearly fast enough to prevent a damaging upswing in blood sugars if fast-acting carbohydrate, like bread, is consumed. This is the central problem for type 1 diabetics of the carbohydrate and the drastic surge it causes in blood sugar. Because I know my body produces essentially no insulin, I have a shot of insulin before every meal. But I no longer eat meals with fast-acting or large amounts of carbohydrate, because the blood sugar swings they caused were what brought about my long-term complications. Even injection by means of an insulin pump, see the discussion near the end of Chapter 19, intensive insulin regimens, cannot automatically fine-tune the level of glucose in my blood the way a non-diabetic's body does naturally. Now, if I ate only the protein portion of the meal, my blood sugar wouldn't have the huge, and potentially toxic, surge that carbohydrates cause. It would rise less rapidly, and a small dose of insulin could act quickly enough to cover the glucose that's slowly derived from the protein. My body would not have to endure wide swings in blood sugar levels. Dietary fat, by the way, has no direct effect on blood sugar levels, except that it can slightly slow the digestion of carbohydrate. In a sense, you could look at my insulin shot before eating only the protein portion of the meal as mimicking the non-diabetics phase 2 response. This is much easier to accomplish than trying to mimic phase I, because of the much lower levels of dietary carbohydrate, only the slow-acting kind, and injected insulin that I use. Page 63.